And the government's talking about raising taxes. So if you're on a fixed income and interest rates are low, you have less money off your nest egg. If taxes go up, that starts to eat away. And where people are really concerned is inflation. There's consequence to printing money. And so what happens in 3 or 5 years to a retiree living on a fixed income is they can't buy the same amount of stuff for the same amount of money, and taxes might confiscate it even more. I just want to help people keep more of what they make first. Plug the financial leaks. Stop tipping the government. Stop overpaying institutions. Stop giving too much money to insurance companies if it's not designed properly. It's about having an elegant design that leads to more safety, protection, and cash flow. And when banks are telling you, hey, fund your retirement plan with our little retirement division here. Hey, put extra money into your mortgage because that improves their cash flow. Like, they have a different set of rules. Their entire rules are, hey, if you get a loan, I just got a loan on this home, you have to make a down payment. If you don't make a big enough down payment, they charge you private mortgage insurance, which is insurance for them. They made me get 2 appraisals on the property, which I paid for to protect them. They wanted to see my taxes. They wanted to see my credit score. They wanted to, know what the value of the home was with that appraisal that I mentioned. And so these are all ways that they manage risk. And then they create cash flow. They're not saying, hey, we'll just give you this money and you owe us something in 30 years from today. They get money along the way. So cash flow is more important than accumulation because it gives you measurement. Is this working? Is this coming in? And can eventually give you financial independence, which says when your assets produce enough cash flow to cover your expenses, you're financially independent. When your income that you actively earn has to cover your expenses, you're not financially independent. And that's where people try to take a percentage and set it aside and wait for a long period of time and hope it replaces their income. But Ron, let me break some bad news and I'll give some good news. Retirees right now that are in retirement have a very gnarly, scary situation. Number one, interest rates are so low that where do they put their money and keep it secure to create cash flow? Interest rates are so low. Like if you put it in a savings account, you're getting next to nothing. If you put it in a money market, it's minuscule. If you put it in a CD, it's not any good. Bonds are concerning because when interest rates are this low, if interest rates go up, it lowers the value of your bond and you can have losses. The stock market is at like such an all-time high. If you're retired, aren't you a little bit worried about how long will that last and sustain? And the government's talking about raising taxes. So if you're on a fixed income and interest rates are low, you have less money off your nest egg. If taxes go up, that starts to eat away. And where people are really concerned is inflation. There's consequence to printing money. And so what happens in 3 or 5 years to a retiree living on a fixed income is they can't buy the same amount of stuff for the same amount of money, and taxes might confiscate it even more. So the first good piece of advice I have here on this bad news is create a life you don't want to retire from. Find a way that you can add value for the rest of your life and don't burn yourself out by sacrificing so much along the way. Create short trips, create time to yourself, find a hobby, find ways to protect yourself as your greatest asset, because too many people trade time for money, they burn out and they look forward to retirement because they don't enjoy their life. But when we have enough purpose to do something that we don't ever want to retire from, which comedy became that for me, well then I'm going to keep going. Even if I don't have to work, I get to choose to work because I'm financially independent. And when we're in choice versus necessity, there's less stress and there's more opportunity to create breathing room, to take some breaks along the way. And so create a life you don't want to retire from, plug your financial leaks, find a hobby that renews you, fulfills you, that doesn't matter whether you make money from it, just so that you could show up a little bit happier, a little bit healthier, and a little bit less stressed. And I think that that'll be pretty solid advice for one day.
So one point within that long list of truly every single thing he said is a whole realm of exploration. So one thing that Garrett just shared with us is about how inflation can happen because the government prints money. So my brain is simple. And so I keep everything crazy simple. So I'm just going to give an example. If this cup costs $1 and the government's like, you know what? We're in trouble. We need tons more money, so let's just print some. And now all of a sudden, instead of this cup being worth this $1, you print 10 times as much. So I've got I don't have two hands over here, but you have 10. So that means this cup is now worth 1/10 of what it was worth before they printed the money. So hopefully that helps some of what his expertise.
It's kind of like a restaurant you go to. You love the soup. And the government says, you know what? We're going to have to water down this soup because we need some of the soup for us because we are hungry. And so they take some of your soup, then put the rest of the water in. So it's still the same amount in the bowl, but it's not it doesn't give you the same nourishment and fulfillment. And it's the easiest way the government taxes is by printing money. Because when they print money, Ron, they're not even printing it. They just add it to computer screens. They're like, think about it. How could you print $3 trillion in a few months? That is an amazing amount. It takes 32,000 years to count to $1 trillion. So how in the world, if they're printing sheets, is it printing fast enough for $3.5 trillion in 3 months? So we have to realize it's just getting out of computer screens. And ultimately, there's going to be consequence to that.
Yeah, it's delaying the pain from the government side in many ways. And then it'll take people by surprise, which is why it's great we have people like Garrett and his team that can educate us so that we make one step at a time, wiser choices. One of my favorite examples is instead of putting money in a savings account in the bank where you make like 0.25%, which is nothing, it's pennies. Instead, there's a way for private citizens to become their own bank. And you can put money in there and you can borrow money and pay it back to yourself without these crazy other events. And this Garrett calls cash flow banking. Can you tell us a simple amount about that? I know that you have a website with Mike Dillard called cashflowbanking.com.
Yep. Yeah, so cashflowbanking.com. I don't own the website, but I endorse it, and they've licensed some of my content, and they're great people that are behind it. And so the concept is, if you can create an overfunded cash value insurance plan that you could get 400 to 800% better interest through dividends than you can in a savings account. You don't have to pay tax on the growth of that, and you get access to that tax preferred rather than just tax delayed. And then you actually could save on term insurance costs by having it. You can have disability benefits that would keep paying if you couldn't pay it yourself due to disability. It's protected from liability and bankruptcy. And banks do this with bank-owned life insurance. Corporations do this with corporate-owned life insurance. But you have to design it properly. And unfortunately, 80 to 90% of what was being sold out there 20 years ago was not designed properly. The good news is, I think 30 to 40% of it is getting close to being designed properly. People are catching on. Agents are doing more of the right things. We've watched a real impact with it in the last 20 years. So that is kind of heartwarming. It's really good, but it still means more than half are not. More than half are high commission, low cash. We want low commission, high cash, and then give you this place where once you earn interest, it's guaranteed and can't be taken away from you. It's contractual and isn't subject to market whims and losses. I made the down payment on this house with my cash value. I bought a cabin with my cash value. I bought a land with the pond with my cash value. I bought, I've done all sorts of things with investments and then paid it back because I treat it like a bank. And so that's definitely something people can do.
So again, my simple mind, this basically equals you take your money, you put it into this particular kind of account that you can go to cashflowbanking.com and become educated about one step at a time. You ask every question you need in order to find out how you gain the interest. You get tax-free money, you borrow, you invest, and pay it back to yourself as if you're the bank. So it's a really cool thing if you set it up well. So follow up with Garrett at his various places, and I'll make sure we have some links for that so that you can find out how to set yourself up better.
So let me give one example, since I go fast and I get excited about finance.
I know, I love your passion.
This is how I would teach about banks in my comedy show. So the other day, my son asked me, Dad, how do banks work? I was like, oh, this will be great. I'm a financial guy. I'll be able to tell him this. I'm like, well, son, They rent your money by giving you a tiny bit of interest, and then they turn around and rent that out to other people for a much higher rate of interest. My son was like, but Dad, what's a tiny bit of interest? I'm like, oh, that's what your mom has every time I tell a joke.
Nice.
But Dad, what if they lose our money? Oh, son, don't worry. That's why we have the FDIC to insure it. It's like, an insurance company? Well, not exactly. It's the government. The government insures us with the taxes we pay. So you're telling me they just pay us back with our own money? Yeah. Is that why they give you a lollipop, sucker? Because you're dumb? Yeah, just an example of
it's nice.
Like how to teach about things. And that's pretty much a real conversation I had with my son.
So cool. You obviously have a smart son who's following in your footsteps and interested in all these beautiful things. So tell us about the tour.
So we filmed this special with 3 Emmy winners, including Marty Callner, who won an Emmy with Seinfeld, which is pretty amazing. And Barry Katz is my manager, who was the one behind Vicious Circle with Dane Cook and Whitney Cummings, and he represented Chappelle for 8 years. I mean, it's pretty spectacular. And so after filming it, we're like, all right, we're gonna pitch this to a streaming service, but I've not been known for comedy. And I just spent all this time preparing to do this American Dream comedy thing. I'm like, it'd be fun to do more of it. So we decided, let's take it on tour so that people can come and experience it. And I get to hang out with people and tell jokes, which I love to do. And they can laugh and learn. And they can get tickets at GarrettGunderson.gg. That's GARRETT. So 2 R's, 2 T's, Gunderson, SON.GG. So GarrettGunderson.gg is in Garrett Gunderson, great game, GG. And
that's a lot of personal validation in that name.
Yeah. So you get to see all the dates and select one that's nearest to you. And if you're a business owner, you want to bring your team, let us know, and we can give discounts for bulk tickets and that kind of stuff. We have a lot of people. I start in Tempe on September 7th, and we have a lot of people bringing team and bringing, family and friends. And we're always going to have a little partition part off where people can have 6 foot distancing and masks if they're COVID concerned or anything. We'll be really mindful of that. So, but I think it's time to see people again. When we filmed this in April, it was ecstatic. Just the energy was electric. It was so much fun. It was great to see everyone. And people learn while they're laughing, which makes you learn 3 times more, they say. So I'm like, we might as well laugh. And I made sure first and foremost, it was funny. You can see when you go to the site and, people like Cindy Crawford saw the comedy special, said she loved it. So we got some celebrity endorsements, and then we've just got some of my friends that I let watch a preview of it or were there that night that kind of endorsed it. So, one of my friends even said, I didn't know you were funny, which is super hurtful and pretty much means he's on the list of being roasted sometime down in the near future. You got to be careful with that kind of stuff. But yeah, and I really appreciate our relationship. That you brought me on to interview and reiterate some of the things that I say when I just machine gun some of these pieces of information.
Well, I just remember what it was like the first time I heard your financial education, because you do get so passionate and excited. And we are so ill-educated on the planet that those regular people like me have to take it one step at a time. And as you build confidence, then you can go and have these conversations and feel really so much safer than people tend to now. So
if people go to the bottom of the website, there's a money quiz to figure out which of the 4 money personas you are that dictate and determine your financial decisions. So then you can understand the good and bad sides of that money persona so that you can make better choices and decisions with your money and kind of heal with some of the scarcity that comes with money sometimes. So that's helpful. And just want to tell you one more story is I actually been working on a one-man show for the last couple of years. That way I can actually slow down and play characters and play the guitar and do spoken words so that this could really sink in, because I realized I have this tendency to get excited and go too fast. And a lot of I got to pause and allow people to receive it and process it. So I hired a director and a screenwriter, and in the 5 cities that I'm I'm actually going to open with that, which we did a test run April 16th, and it was the most impact I've ever seen with me on stage, just understanding how to reach people in a big way. So I'm really excited to be bringing that out so that it is more accessible, so it is more able to be internalized, and it's performance-based, so it's entertaining so that people lose track of time but remember what they were hearing.
And it gives us a chance to see many more of your talents. What can we say?
I'm working on them, man. Some of these, I call them perfectly imperfect. Like,
that's right. Absolutely.
On Broadway, and I may be the worst singer, worst guitar player ever to make it there, but it's because it's the culmination of bringing all these things together in a way that's just an expression of me. And my mantra is expression, not perfection. Right?
Yes, it's all about heart. It's all about heart and sharing the experience of each other's gifts and how we can all help each other. So I think it is really awesome. So I'm going to give listeners an awareness that in the next 2 months, Phoenix, La Jolla, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Las Vegas, and Salt Lake are the cities. And then there are tons more in the months that follow. So I'm going to leave all the links below this conversation and make sure that you have access to the books, to the tour, to all the crazy things that Garrett is up to. And I thank you so much for being here. It really, really is always a joy to connect.
Hey, thanks for having me on. This is the best part about comedy, is connecting with people and having a reason to just chat and laugh, you know. Want to master your money? Want to figure out the things that you could do to improve your finances? Click here and check out more videos like this on Money Matters.